was he so nervous? He took her to the park. She crossed her arms and lowered her eyelids. Someday somebody's gonna ask you a question that you should say yes to once in your life. Maybe tonight I got a question for you. She had no idea. She started to cry. She said in a good way. He took her by the hand. Yeah, he walked her back home, and they took the long way. Someday somebody's gonna ask you a question that you should say yes to once in your life. Maybe tonight I've got a question for you. So when I met the woman that was going to be my wife, it was New York City, and I was on a date with her roommate, which sounds worse than it is. I remember the roommate said, "Oh, you're gonna love Erica, my roommate." And I thought that would be complicated. Turns out it really wasn't. And Erica and I figured out that we were gonna be going to London the next week. She was gonna go there for work, and I was gonna go there for work. And I said, "You should come to my show." And she said, "Well, I'll be staying at my boyfriend's house, but he won't be there." It might be too much information, but I will divulge that she was also going through a divorce. So I would have been third on the depth chart. Which was kind of cool because it took off all the pressure. So I hung out with her for a week in London, totally platonic. We did all these romantic things. We watched Robin Hitchcock sing Waterloo Sunset at the foot of Waterloo Bridge. We walked through the Queen's Garden. Not the rock band. The royal figure. We went and had dinner with this sweet couple. She was an actress and he was a solicitor, which is British for lawyer. And he told us this story about how they had just gotten engaged. And it was his one day his sperm gave him off. And he had the ring burning a hole in his pocket. And the sunset was about to happen, and he went and woke her up from a nap, and she was in a foul mood. And he said, get up, Scarlett." Actually, he said it with a slight stutter, which I won't do because it sounds mean-spirited, but it was quite becoming on him. And she got up, and they went to the park, and he proposed to her, and the whole thing was so sweet. And he actually used the line on her that I later stole. He said, "Someday somebody's going to ask you a question." And she did. She said yes. And I listened to that while sitting next to the woman that would become my wife. A couple of days later, we looked at each other at a taxi at 3 a.m. after a party. And we said, "You know what?" And then we kissed. About 4 months later, we were living together in Manhattan, down by the World Trade Center. And about a year after that, the whole thing blew up, literally. And then we went to Ohio to live with her parents while the National Guard figured out how long it would be before we could get our stuff. And while we were there, her cousin married one of her best friends. Her cousin Lutzy married her best friend Kyra, and they live in Montclair, New Jersey now, and they're here tonight. And I don't know if I ever officially thanked those guys, because as we left their wedding, walking through the parking lot, I asked Erica's dad for her hand in marriage. And the next morning we woke up and we had breakfast with her family in Brunswick, Ohio. And we took a walk that went on because I was nervous. And at the corner of Ptarmigan and Old Eagle, I got down on one knee and I asked her if she would marry me. I didn't use this song. I just asked her. And she was quiet forever. And I finally had to say, so... And she laughed and she said yes. And I'm not sure what the segue is into the part where I'm about to sing it in French, except that the boyfriend that she threw over for me was French. But there is a silver lining to that part of the story as well. Erica introduced her to his wife, and they just had their second baby. So it's all happy. Not sure about the roommate. Elle sortait d'un rêve, la tête lui brûlait. Pourquoi donc craignait-il? Il se rend au parc, elle croise à ses bras, elle aime ses beaux yeux. Y a une question qu'on te posera. Réponds oui chérie si tu oseras. Un jeu de ta vie, peut-être ce soir je ne penserai à toi. Once in your life, maybe tonight I've got a question for you. I've got a question for you.